Hello everyone, it's Jin'taan here, and today I'm going to be talking to Greygal. Much like myself, she wears a lot of hats in EVE Online, being the leader of the Alliance Affirmative Dot, a volunteer organiser at practically every EVE meet I've ever been to, but most importantly, and what we're going to be focusing on today, she is the organiser and the FC behind the Redemption Road New Player Roams, noted in the last CSM minutes as having the single highest retention rate of any activity anywhere in EVE. So, welcome.
Hello, Jin'taan. It's so good to be here. And hello, everybody listening.
Now, before we really leap into discussing the details of the Redemption Road roams, what I wanted to ask just on behalf of all the new players who might be listening is how, if, and when can someone join in on these roams?
Well, if is anybody can join in on our rooms. We fly NPSI, which means not purple shoot it. You don't need to join our corporation or alliance. You can be in an NPC corp or your own corp or fly on an alt, whatever. And they are open to all, not just new players. You can be a day one player. You can be a 10-year-old bitter vet. You're welcome on our rooms. And how to join is we roam on almost every Sunday, but those are just like regular roams. The new player roams, our new bro roams, those are always on the Sunday closest to the 15th of the month. And I announce them on Twitter. I send a mailer to our in-game mailing list, which is called Redemption Roams, I believe. And also we have it posted in the MOTD of our public chat channel, which is Redemption Road, all the details on it. For example, our next new bro room will be February 16th. Our rooms are always out of Berta, and they always start at 2000 Eve time.
And how do you do the comms for these roams? Is there any server in particular that people should join if they want to ask more information or ask questions about it?
That would be our Discord server, which we have linked in our MOTD, of course, and I will share the link with you.
Cool, I'll make sure that that goes in the description below. So when you take these roams out, what's your objective? Is there something you're trying to show these new players in particular, or is it just about providing an easy entry point into PvP?
Well, the objective is explosions, of course. I really, if what I want them to take away from it is that handshaking, heart thumping excitement that so many of us have in Eve. And, I aim to actually go out and get us all killed, but in the process, kill a whole bunch of others. And that experience of the fight and seeing that PvP is actually something really cool and exciting and not just this negative, oh my God, I lost my ship thing. And routinely on our rooms, I hear people actually saying things like, oh my God, I never knew dying could be so much fun. You know what I mean? And if I don't get us all killed, people are often disappointed. The things I want to show them in particular, besides that, but like more from a in-game perspective, is actually how to fly in a fleet, which isn't really difficult. It's actually pretty simple. But for a player of any age who's never actually flown in a fleet, especially, a fleet of 30, 40, 50 people that's moving, 30, 40, 50 systems, 100 systems, hunting, that can be kind of intimidating. We show them, though, how to, be in a fleet even as a new player and just be able to keep up with the fleet, to be able to follow the FC's orders and not feel like, well, a noob.
Yeah, I know that a lot of new players find it very hard to ask questions from their FC because they don't want to get in the way of the flow of the fleet. And something that I noticed when I hitched a ride on one of your new player roams was that you're calling out specifically what people need to do every single action in a way that doesn't make new players feel like they're being a burden, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I may over-explain things sometimes, but I try to explain what's going on. I try to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, how to do things, Especially the whole keeping up with the fleet. I encourage people if they fall behind to say so. I encourage questions. Just type your questions in fleet chat. Somebody will answer them. If I see it, I'll answer it. And I try to encourage also that, when comms are quiet and we're just flying through dead space, just feel free to talk, to ask questions. And it's particularly intimidating for new players, but even older players, to ask questions because they don't want to be that guy. They have pride. They don't want to seem like they're dumb or they don't know what they're doing, or people are so afraid to ask questions because they get like embarrassed by it. But more often than not, the questions asked is exactly the question that everybody else was like wondering and thinking but afraid to ask. So when you do ask a question, you're actually not just finding out the answer for everybody, but giving me an opportunity to share our knowledge with everybody, not just you.
Do you have any particularly memorable stories or moments from one of these roams?
Oh, so many. Um, One that will probably stand out in my mind forever amongst many, though, is actually a pretty simple moment. This was actually our Happy New Year roam a couple of years ago. Every New Year's Day, we do a rookie ship roam. And we go out in rookie ships and just find something to tackle and kill it. Well, this time, we were coming through Curse, and this guy jumped, and we were sitting on a gate, and this guy, and I think it was a rapier, I don't even remember, he jumps through the gate into us, so of course we tackle him and start shooting him. And then one of our scouts in the system over says, hey, we just had a local spike, there's about 25 mostly cruisers heading your way. And I was like, oh my god, are we going to be able to kill this guy? And of course he's killing us while we're killing him. And as people are dying, they're just docking up and grabbing another Velotor or Ibis or whatever it is that their, default rookie ship is, and getting right back in the fight. It's taken us forever to kill this guy. And we're like, there's just no way we're going to kill him before his, and it was the same corporation, Alliance, his friends arrived. And so they land on gate, they jump in on us, they decloak, and we're just like about ready to call, we're going to die. Let's just warp off or whatever. And then they all warp off.
So they just abandoned their friend to die?
They abandoned me to die. And then one of them says in local chat, well, that's what you get for getting tackled by a Velotor. There was about 25 of us, I think, and I'll never forget it. That's the kind of funny thing that happens all the time in EVE. Every time we go into Brave Space, I know that we're going to leave all in pods, but they're always going to bring us a fight, okay? Over and over again. Every time we go into Providence, I know that we have almost equal odds that Providence is going to undock with 200 ships with Logi support against our 40 frigates, or we're going to tackle some guy in a Dread or what's that other? She's the one with the Bastion mode. Why can't it Marauder or something? Or a T3. All blingy fit. We're going to catch somebody who's not paying attention to intel on a gate, and when he's yelling in comms that he needs help, nobody's going to come. These are the kind of things that happen all the time, and it's always giggle worthy. Matter of fact, the last time we were in Providence, we did catch a very blingy, very heavily tanked ship, which for the life of me, I can't remember what it was, but it was worth over $2 billion. And it took us 15 minutes to kill him. He finally ran out of cap charges, and that's how we killed him. We were typing in all our different chats, hey, if anybody's near Providence, rush to us and help us kill this guy. We were about 12 destroyers at the time. And just all kinds of things happen all the time.
Yeah, it's kind of the benefit of being out there to engage with the content in the first place. You never know what's going to happen in EVE. It's one of the reasons why I still play it 10 years later.
And you never know when an enemy is going to become a frenemy.
Exactly.
Of
So,
course, we have no enemies. We're purple.
outside of, just the random chaos that occurs, what do you think really makes these roams enjoyable for new players? Is there anything that you think you do differently to how normal people approach training fleets or new player fleets?
Well, that's I'm not sure that I'm necessarily doing anything different, but I do try to, we actually try to create a little bit of a sense of an event, a sense of an adventure that we are in this together, and we don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to find out together and we're going to survive or die together. Um, our our scouts are, particularly professional. I try to hold our scouts and our recon reports to a pretty high standard, although I admit we kind of slack off a little bit lately. But just that whole listening to the recon reports and the FC giving the orders, me giving the orders, and moving the fleet and that sense of anticipation. It's a show. We're putting on a show, and you are part of it and are also the star of it.
So, how did this whole project come about? Was there something in particular that spurred you on to try and make these fleets, or was it something that just naturally developed over time?
Okay, so way back in the day, I've been playing Eve almost 11 years. Way back in the day when I was still pretty young in Eve, and every time I went into, you know, low sec, at the time, I'd never even been in null sec, well, other than wormhole space. I'd been in wormhole space and low sec and high sec, and I was just getting killed all the time. And I always felt so kind of futile, you know what I mean? So just not good. And but I was enjoying the game mostly, and I was enjoying my first corporation. But I'd reached a point at about 6 months where it was kind of like, well, is this all there is to Eve? And, killing sleepers in the wormholes and dying to people who are camping our wormhole, or dying because I forgot to set my autopilot right and ended up going gate to gate through low sec to smart bombing battleships. And I came across this group called Agony Unleashed, and they had this project called PvP University, and they had these little classes that were open to everybody called PvP Basic. And I got in on one of those, and it was like a lecture for about 4 hours, and then the next day was a roam that was usually about 4 hours. And that roam, well, first off, the lectures, like, it taught me things, basic survival skills, things about how understanding the invulnerability timers and gate timers. When you jump through a gate, you're cloaked and invulnerable for 60 seconds. When you undock, how to use control space so that way you can just redock and not just like get killed on the dock by a war target, on the station by a war target. It's really just simple how to move around in Eve and survive things. And that just like changed the game for me. Then I went on the roam. And the FC was Kaldak, and hopefully there's a lot of people out there who still remember him, but Kaldak was quite the character. We ended up roaming for 14 hours. His whole philosophy was, if there's targets to shoot, I'm shooting them. And he was just relentless, just nonstop. And he was like all big, burly, mean, and loving, all teddy bear all at the same time of an FC. And it just completely changed the game for me. This roaming is part of a group, and it's us against the world, and we're going to kill whatever we can, and we're going to die trying. Just that whole, it's about the fight attitude. They're not enemies, they're opponents, they're targets. We're bringing the content, and they're honoring us by undocking and giving us the content. This entire philosophy and attitude towards PvP, and anybody who wanted to fly with us can fly with us, just completely changed it. And I remember at the end of that roam sitting there going, one day I want to be one of them. And I was. About 2 years later, I actually joined, about a year and a half, 2 years later, I joined Agony Unleashed, learned, which was yet a whole nother new experience internally, learning to fly with them. They were really quite the small gang PvP experts. And eventually I ended up leading PvP University and actually being the person running the classes, running the fleets, the basic fleets and stuff like that. And after 2.5 years in Agony, when I struck out on my own, I knew that I wanted to create a NPSI community and that I wanted to keep doing what I was already doing, but I wanted to do it a little different because I didn't want to directly compete with Agony's projects. But there was also a high demand for these kind of rooms, but not everybody could dedicate 2 full days, 2 long afternoons to the way they did it. So I came up with, well, not just me and my, the people who founded Redemption Road and Affirmative Alliance with me, a much more compressed, hands-on, just the basics, the bare minimums you need to know, and whatever else we can teach you in the process. Literally 15 minutes of talk, undock, let's go. You'll figure out the rest as we fly along, and we'll show you as it's going kind of approach. And a lot of that also was a recognition that the quote-unquote market, of new players has changed. The concept of, I got to take a class for a video game, that's kind of become like a bit of a turnoff in some ways. To do this, to join this wonderful experience, though, it's like, a good afternoon one day, a good afternoon the next day, or people just don't have that kind of time to dedicate anymore. Whereas with my rooms, it's like, you can just come and join them and undock and know that we're going to do our best to not leave you behind, to make sure that you are still with the fleet, and just go along for the ride and figure it out as you go along. It's trial by fire. And we've noticed that people come back to our rooms over and over again. I've got people who've been coming on our rooms for 4 or 5 years now and almost never miss a room. Even though they don't, they could actually probably run a Nubro room. They know exactly everything I'm going to say almost every time. But mostly I wanted to make it as accessible and as low intimidation factor as possible. Because over and over again, we've all heard it from newer players. Oh, I want to get into PvP. I want to learn PvP when I'm better, when I know more about the game, when I have more skill points. And that's just, if I were to, the best advice I can give to any new player, if you have any interest in PvP, and especially fleet PvP, is do it now. Don't wait. It's way easier to get into when you're young and unskilled and don't have many skill points, because the ships you're flying are a lot cheaper and you just don't really care so much if you die. You know what I mean? You're not so killboard sensitive then. And if you can get that bug, get the PvP bug young, you're going to be playing EVE a lot longer too, I believe.
So, is there anything that veteran players, so people who aren't newer players, can do to help support these rooms, other than, engaging them in things that will provide an enjoyable fight?
Well, yeah, definitely undock and bring us a fight. Hot drop us, donate catalysts to us. Come on the rooms and fly with us. There's always a question asked that I don't know the answer to. I learn something new on these rooms all the time. Spread the word.
Do you have any thoughts on what CCP could learn from the success of these roams and, maybe apply to their NPE, or in some way improve the game itself to make activities like this more accessible to newer players?
Well, I've been nagging CCP for a very long time about the ability to open up a fleet to all, have the ability to public fleet, to set a fleet open to all instead of just based on standings or corporation alliance. And now I'm bugging to have them allow us to use access control lists in fleets, because that would actually be useful to just about everybody out there, everyone out there. But imagine, and also the ability to post public events, in-game events on the in-game calendar. Imagine you're a newer player, you log on, you haven't committed to a corporate alliance yet, or maybe you're an older player and your corporate alliance has got nothing going on and you're bored. You want to find something to do. What if you could just hit the calendar? Oh, look, there's something going on over there. Or hit the fleet finder. Hey, look, there's a mining fleet open to anybody. Ooh, let's go gank it. You know, just wouldn't that be cool that you could just log on and find something happening somewhere? I think that would be the best possible thing that CCP could do, not just for EVE players and younger, new players and younger players, but older players and those players who are solo players. Definitely, that is one big, huge change that could be made. And while I know that's not directly related to the NPE, you could add it into as a part of the NPE, how to find people to fly with, how to find things to do with others, because EVE is better together after all.
So are there any other kind of new player focused resources or groups that you think people should be more aware of, not only just to utilize if they're a new player, but also to direct new players towards? Because I've always found that to be a huge problem. People want to help new players, but they don't really know where to direct them towards.
Oh, well, of course, the big three, Brave Newbies, Pandemic Horde, EVE University. Karma Fleet, I believe, is very new player friendly. Test Alliance is well known for being, new player friendly. But any of those organizations and groups, especially EVE University, which many of their classes are now open to the public. You don't even have to join EVE University to attend one of their lectures and seminars. I shouldn't call them classes per se. But those are the big ones. There's a plethora of smaller groups. If there's so many, I can't even begin to think of them all, that are looking and open to helping new players. Any of the NPSI groups tend to be new player friendly, even though they may not have a new player specific room like we do. They will welcome new players. Spectre Fleet is one example. RVB, great organization. While they're not really focused on new player training, they are very welcome to new players. And in particular, anybody in RVB can just, form a fleet and go fight. You don't have to be like a pro FC or anything. Matter of fact, Brave is like that too. And so is Horde, Obviously, a 3-day-old player is not going to be allowed to take out a battleship room, but you get the idea. Those are the ones that I direct people to all the time, and the ones that I definitely highly recommend. Oh, let's not forget Faction Warfare. That's another good place to get your feet wet.
Alright, well, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we end this interview?
Well, as you mentioned at the top, I am heavily involved in EVE Meetups. And I just had a fabulous EVE Vegas where me and about 18 other player volunteers helped CCP out, that wonderful show. And I'm currently organizing our second Cruisers of EVE cruise. We're going to be doing a real-life cruise, undock in real life, and board a cruiser-sized cruise ship. It's about the size of an Omen. 9-day Baltic Sea cruise out of Copenhagen. We'll be stopping in, Helsinki, Tallinn, Estonia, 2 days in St. Petersburg, Russia. Stop in Germany, Warnemünde. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. And then back to Copenhagen. But 9-day cruise, all inclusive, alcohol, limited alcohol. And I have the details about that on the EVE Online forums. That's June 16th through June 25th of this year. 33 of us did this last year, but we went on a cruise to Alaska. And so this year we're doing a Baltic Sea cruise.
Is there anywhere that people can go to find out more information on that?
I have a link on I have a post on the EVE Online forums, and I will give you the link for that also to put in the information. But yeah, if you just go to EVE Online forums, which is forums.eveonline.com, go to the out of game events subforum, and you'll see cruises of Eve, 9 days, Scandinavia, Russia, and Baltic Sea cruise. But I'll get you the link also.
Alright, well, it has been absolutely brilliant having you on. Thank you so much for spending your time and answering my questions.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Hope you fly with us again soon.
I'll make sure to try and do it sometime in the future. But until next time, everyone, take care and fly smart.